We are going to download, install and configure an operating system for the first time use on a Raspberry Pi. The things that you should have before we begin are a Raspberry Pi with a power supply, a network cable connected to your local network, and a monitor that can be connected to the HDMI port. You will also need a desktop or laptop PC with a microSD card and an adapter to allow you to plug it into this PC. On the PC, you should have the software for writing the operating system on the card called Etcher and the remote connection software PuTTY. And lastly, you should have an internet connection. To get started, we want to go to the raspi-pi.org website and download the latest Raspberry Pi OS image. Just save the file to your PC and then unzip it. Place the SD card into an adapter and then plug it into the PC. Then use the Etcher software to select the image you want and flash it to the card. When it's finished, the card is ejected automatically, so to reload it, unplug the adapter and plug it back in. The reason we're doing this is so that we can create a file on the SD card called SSH. Just right-click on the folder and create a new file and name it SSH. This will enable secure shell access once the operating system is loaded. Eject and remove the card and load it into our Raspberry Pi. Plug our Pi into a screen from the HDMI connector and a network cable into our home router or switch. Lastly, plug in the power and let's see what happens. Lots of messages will flash up on the screen and the Pi will reboot a couple of times as it resizes itself to fit on the SD card and goes through its first full boot up sequence. The most important thing to note here is the IP address that is applied to the Pi. We will use that to get SSH access. So now we can go back to our desktop PC and start up PuTTY. Type in the IP address of our Pi and press open. A terminal should open and you are now connected remotely to your Raspberry Pi from your desktop. As this is the first time we're logging in, enter the login name Pi and the password Raspberry. Press enter and we'll be logged in and ready to go. Now we will want to update the software on the Pi. Type in sudo apt-get update and we'll start downloading the list of possible updates. Once complete, we type in sudo apt-get upgrade, and after telling the Pi that we want to upgrade everything, it will download and then update the appropriate software. The last piece of housekeeping that we need to do is to change the settings. We do this via the command sudo raspi-config. This will help us and the Pi interface with each other through the localization options where we can set the language and regional settings as well as the time zone and Wi-Fi country. Once this is complete, the Pi will tell us that we need to reboot. After that's finished, we can log in again using PuTTY and our IP address that we discovered earlier, and that's it. We've downloaded, installed and configured an operating system for the first time use on a Raspberry Pi.